Did your school have a school genius that was frighteningly talented or intelligent? Where are they now, and what are they currently doing? Story 1. I went to a small high school with about 70 kids per grade in Kansas. The genius in the grade above me works at the Large Hadron Collider in Europe. He was a really good dude. The best story that stuck out for me is he used to hang out with another guy, Eric, who was a pretty hardcore football player and wrestler. No one wanted to mess with him. One day I heard a teacher say jokingly, "It's scary they hang out together because this guy is smart enough to build a bomb and Eric is crazy enough to use it." Story 2. We had at least 3 or 4, and they all went on to Ivy League colleges, except the one I knew as more than just an acquaintance. He went to a state college for the tuition and now works for NASA in their jet propulsion laboratory as a Langley intern. They were all very nice people, and one of them used to stop me in the hallway like a creeper, but it always turned out to be for really nice, lovely reasons. Like when he got me a ton of chocolate for Valentine's Day, and he hated chocolate, so when he saw me out of class for a bathroom break, he whispered my name a bunch until I turned around and went, "This is awkward, but do you like chocolate? Because I have a ton and I don't like chocolate." We ended up standing by his locker, chatting while I nibbled chocolate. Another is also working at NASA, but I forget which department or division. And finally, one's a doctor in Massachusetts who does a bunch for charity and does Doctors Without Borders all the time. I don't know why we had an abnormal amount of geniuses in the years I went to middle school and high school, but we were slammed. Still, they were the nicest, most humble people I ever met, and 10 out of 10 would sleep next to them in chemistry again. Story 3. My school's genius was painfully awkward and socially inept, but still a pretty nice guy. Perfect score on the ACT and the SATs. I have no idea where he chose to go to school. He owns his own lighting design company, along with his wife, who is an interior decorator. They just bought their 3rd vacation home. Our other school genius was also very awkward and socially inept. This was in middle school. He took the SATs in 8th grade, scored perfect, and skipped all of high school, and went straight to university at 14. He jumped off the 20th floor at the university the next year. Story 4. Kid who made high-grade explosives. He was a little weird and socially awkward, but a nice guy. At the age where you d around with firecrackers and match heads, he was the same, except he was smarter, not wiser, than you or me. So he ordered various chemicals from the internet and ended up triggering the online companies into informing the police. Armed police kicked his family's door in at 3 a.m. and stormed the place. Army bomb squad examined the stuff he'd made. Apparently, it was pretty much stable plastic explosive, but still had to take it out onto the fields behind his house and destroy it. He got away with little more than a caution and court-ordered counseling. Fell out of touch with him, but Facebook stalking reveals he went to Cambridge to study physics, and he now designs the software certain companies use to trade on the stock market, married the daughter of a Hong Kong investment banker, and splits his time between his apartment in Hong Kong and house in London. Story 5. Got a job right out of high school for the best gaming company in our country, basically our local Google. His starting salary was bigger than my parents, who've worked the same job for 10 years. He spent every paycheck on video games and was fired after like 3 months for being lazy. He decided to take a break year and mostly stayed at home playing video games. Actually met his current girlfriend playing Counter-Strike, so he has that going for him. Note, brains and talent are nothing compared to the power of sloth. Story 6. So my high school was a gifted school. With the exception of scholarship purposes, we all went to the top 30 universities. But still, I didn't meet a real genius until I went to college. This guy, 1 year above me, went on College Jeopardy and annihilated everyone. He was tens of thousands of dollars ahead of everyone every round, and he won overall. Graduated from our school, then went to our rival, MIT, and got his PhD. And now he's a principal engineer at Intel. One of my friends knew him personally. He said he was weird as hell, but being weird as hell is kind of normal in nerd haven. Note, is that why Intel is doing so poorly lately? Story 7. We did. She was one of my best friends too. She went through a stoner phase, drinks like a fish, married a stripper, and now works insurance. On the other side of the spectrum, the kid who nearly failed every math class and was literally kicked out of college now makes nearly $100K a year doing web development. Life's a freaking trip. Story 8. He wasn't a genius. He was socially awkward, uncharismatic, and most importantly, didn't like authority. Everyone expected him to fail. The girls in class used to say he will be living with his parents until he was 50. He was going to die alone. He was going to be a pedophile or commit suicide. I remember some people shooting paintballs at him when he was walking home, and this was when they were around 16 to 18 years old. Turns out he can play the stock market and has a mind for business. He bought his 3rd house recently and posted about it on Facebook. A lot of the people that bullied him and treated him like dirt started treating him like royalty. They talked about how they were good friends, had fun times, etc. He didn't buy it for a second. One of the girls tried to sue him for sexual harassment and false claim. He won easily because he has not had any physical contact with anyone from the graduating class because he flew across the country and didn't want to see any of them. Our high school keeps trying to invite him back to do a speech, talk, or just tell anyone the secret to his success. He told them to screw right off. When they said they were going to open a new building and name it after him, he told them they better not because he refuses to give his name to that school in any kind of capacity. The school quickly backed down. I wouldn't say he is completely a 100% happy person. He's very defensive and doesn't trust others openly. He has few friends, and from the looks of things, that's all he needs. Story 9. School genius was an absolute sweetheart and still is. He received 98% on the IB, International Baccalaureate, and went to Oxford to study law. We're Australian, so that is a big deal. He has since returned and become a corporate lawyer earning huge amounts, met his now wife at a corporate event, and at the age of 36 has 2 beautiful little girls. His parents are extremely well off, but he also worked his ass off to get to where he is today. He's one of those quote-unquote rich white guys that fortunately doesn't take anything for granted and knows how lucky he's been, but can also hold his head high because he's worked hard for everything he has. Story 10. My friend Ian was the smartest kid in school. He was 2 grades above me, got a perfect score on the SAT, and actually wrote the skeleton of a play for the drama club. Me and some other people higher up in the club all sat down with him and our drama teacher and did some editing like made lines shorter, easier to memorize, he used really big words, added or changed characters so we could use more people in the production. He jokingly applied to Yale just to see what would happen, and he actually got in, and they really wanted him to go, just not enough to lower prices enough for someone from Hicksville, Michigan to go there. He ended up going to Michigan Tech, and I don't remember what his major is. Story 11. I hung out with a crew of them. We all played Dungeons and Dragons together. Those were good times. These were wildly bright kids, and they all came from good homes. 1 is a commercial airline pilot now, 2 work for NASA. 1 flew fighter jets in the Air Force, 1 got a full ride to MIT and is doing some kind of engineering work the last time I checked. 1 is a successful graphic designer living a comfortable life with his lovely wife and 5 kids. The wife posts a little too much on Facebook, but she is a good person. 1 is a social justice lawyer or some such and a successful one at that. Then there's me. I was the poor kid in the group. Even if I was the dumbest one of them all, I'm still probably somewhat smarter than the average Joe. I ended up working at a big box department store to help my family pay the bills while I watched all of my friends go on to have wildly successful careers. By the time I did go to college, I felt like I was already way too old. I won some prestigious national scholarships that took me to some interesting places, but I chose a degree that nurtured my soul and not my bank account. I own that one and I don't have any regrets, but I don't have any money either. So now I'm unemployed, going on 32, and I just feel tired all the time. It's like I've had the best years drained out of me. I own my own blame for my choices, but I think being poor had a lot to do with where I am now. My girlfriend and I just broke up last Sunday. One of the deciding factors was that we were in 2 different places, life path-wise. What a screwed up show. Story 12. I knew a genius in high school who jumped 2 grades. He was 12 as a freshman. He was the first seat in symphony orchestra, attracted all the girls' attention, and excelled in every class, including calculus AB and physics 2. This kid was pretty humble and introverted but showed signs of mental illnesses like schizophrenia. I saw him last year in high school just randomly shaking his head and arm and returning back to normal as if nothing had happened. Story 13. My school genius was a bossy know-it-all, like a badly written Lisa Simpson. She was bullied a lot. I was the runner-up smart kid, smart enough to be smarter than everyone else, but under the radar enough to avoid daily hatred. I went through a roller coaster relationship with her. We were friends, then we weren't, then we were, then we weren't. It was my fault, really. I was a screw-up of a kid. Her mom was really overbearing about her studies and extracurricular activities, to the point that even other kids would whisper about it, and the poor girl had multiple breakdowns. I don't know what happened to her after primary school. I don't even know if she's still alive, to be honest. The poor girl was destined to be one of 2 things, a genius or a statistic. That kind of pressure can really damage a kid. Story 14. My school was literally started for him. His parents had homeschooled him, and while they were both extremely intelligent, they wanted him to have a high school for some reason. So they got a charter school and started his freshman year. I have no idea where he is or what he's doing. Story 15. There was this one kid who was autistic. He could memorize basically anything in seconds, but is practically impossible to communicate with unless you were someone close to him. Don't know how he's doing now, but from what I've heard, he still needs full-time support from his parents. I worked a telecom job with a guy who was quite autistic. If you told him your birthday, he would instantly tell you what day of the week you were born. He would also tell a lot of people what their zip code was as soon as they tell him what town they lived in before they had a chance. It was beyond extraordinary. The guy was also beyond socially awkward. He would walk up to a full table in the break room and just linger very close to people. I'd always try to sit away from him in the cubicles because he was very loud on the phone. He also didn't understand proper sales speech. I was sitting near him one day because all the other seats were full and I heard him say very loudly, "Well, ma'am, if you'd stop asking questions, the call would be over in about 5 minutes." I fell out of my chair laughing. The guy was a mathematical genius, but they had to let him go because he just couldn't keep people on the phone or make sales. I think they should have allowed him to explain that he was autistic. People had no idea. Story 16. Yep, my best friend. She's still freakishly smart, just got a STEM PhD from Harvard and felt guilty that it took her so long to finish. She finished in 6 years after skipping a grade in school. She's 27 and has a frickin' STEM PhD and feels like she hasn't done enough. That girl is for sure going to cure cancer. She's going to cure cancer, refuses to patent the technology, and does everything in her power to make sure it's a super low-cost drug everybody can afford. And that drug will save millions of lives. She'll win every prize ever. And then she'll be sad that she couldn't make the miracle drug cure cancer and diabetes. Story 17. I had the school genius in my class. She always had the best grades in all of school. Could have gone to med school if she wanted. Went to law school because her parents were both lawyers. It took her almost twice the time to finish it. Where I'm from, it's 4 years for the degree and she took 7, and is currently working as a shop assistant at Primark, a clothing shop in Europe. I heard she had a major meltdown in university because her grades weren't top of the class and she didn't know how to handle it. Story 18. My school has one, a freaking genius that excels at every scientific subject and entered one of the best universities in my country for the medical profession. Everyone in my school thought he'd become a surgeon or something like that. Well, he did graduate from university but never got his license to be a proper doctor. Apparently, during university, he found out that he really liked and was good at boxing. Currently, about 5 years after he graduated, he had become a professional athlete in boxing and won a few championships. The dude has one of the best minds I've seen, but apparently nothing makes him happier than boxing. Story 19. This guy was beyond genius. I mean, just knew a little bit of everything, valedictorian, etc. He was rather sheltered by his own choosing, got a full ride scholarship to MIT. In his first semester, he discovered he really liked sex and alcohol. Ended up dropping out after that first year and had a pretty messed up life for a decade or so. Something, I don't know what, woke him up and he turned himself around, and he's currently an executive for one of the world's largest construction firms. Story 20. My school genius got a 5 out of 5 in Calculus 2 AP when he was a junior in high school. He was a douche, but no one denied the kid was a genius, loved learning and loved being smart. He had completed most AP classes by the time his senior year had started. He got accepted to MIT for physics. He got drunk one night during graduate school, scaled a building on campus with his friends, and fell off, killing himself in Darwinian fashion. It's truly one of the most ironic things I've ever seen. The smartest person I've ever met died in the dumbest way I had ever seen. Story 21. Not from my school, but there was a kid who's my mom's friend's son. When I was young, my mom would tell me stories of how good he is at studying and how he's a gifted student and probably going to be a doctor or a lawyer and earn lots of money. Maybe as a way to compare me to other kids to motivate me in my studies. The way that they praised him, I legitimately thought as a kid that he's going to be a future president or something. Fast forward, many years later, that guy decided to drop out of school and went to be a tattoo artist. He has full sleeves on both hands, too. Heard that his parents were disappointed that he turned out that way, but hey, at least he's doing what he loves right now and not being forced to be what his parents' vision of him is. Story 22. General in the U.S. Army now. The dude was always compassionate to other people, motivated and wicked smart, and he carried his single mother family on his back by constantly working as a teenager and young adult. Weirdly enough, one of his sisters was born mentally deficient. The other is just dumb as hell for making stupid freaking decisions like being a single teenage mother at age 16. Not sure how he turned out to be the ace, but he certainly rose out of living out of a dingy double-wide trailer without a father to do great things. Life is this dude's oyster. Story 23. A bit cliche, but I literally had someone of Chinese heritage, his parents came to England in the 60s, I think, who was the golden boy. Issue is, his intelligence was due to a mental condition that eventually degrades. I can't recall the name, but he'd always been like this since he was a child. It started to show in college, his grades began slipping, and by the time I left, he was barely keeping a grade C. And this wasn't a slacking because he's in college and college students prefer partying to studying kind of thing. His parents are still knocking around, but to my knowledge, he doesn't have a job, or much of a life really. His condition advanced and now he's not got much of a life. You'd never think he was the genius now. Story 24. He was my, frenemy. Got a full ride scholarship to a Division I school for legit academic excellence, had a 7-figure job as the eventual head of his family's company waiting for him. All he had to do was finish college. Quit college 2 years in, ran a business his parents bought him into the ground. Soon after, driving under the influence cases started, driver's license now gone, ostensibly for life. Now works as a crappy bartender and plays in awful bands. His kid's baby mama lives with him, and their terror of a kid in the 4-bedroom almost mansion his parents gave him after it was revealed he could no longer drive. I'll never understand why he didn't at the very least finish college, but since he apparently has a huge safety net made out of money, he will likely never have to be accountable, ever. Story 25. I was one of the top kids in my school, projected top grades in pretty much everything, and I seriously wanted to be a nuclear physicist when I was about 12. This was in a rough sink estate school that really wasn't expected to churn out anything but factory drones. At 13, I discovered alcohol, then drugs, and screwed my life up. Spent the next 30 years on and off heroin, amphetamines, and other drugs, and I basically ruined my life and any career prospects. I managed to accidentally get into IT during a clean phase, stuck with that for nearly 20 years with absolutely no interest in it, but was piss easy, paid very well, and you could be a functioning addict while doing it. Currently clean, apart from prescription opiates, and pretty seriously and permanently ill, making scratch money restoring vintage motorbikes. Ironically, I'm the happiest I've been in decades. Story 26. That would be my best friend. He skipped ahead 2 grades in elementary school. In middle school, he learned how to code in HTML and Java, and in the 90s made websites for various businesses and doctors in the area. He used the money he made to start a business while attending college for a computer science degree. His business was PC assembly and repair, and he ran a major operation near his university that serviced many of the students there. He taught himself board repair and learned a huge amount of schematics. He got married after college, and his wife insisted they move back closer to her family, and he obliged. He closed his business and figured he'd restart in her town, Nowhere, Montana, population, old. He moved in 2007, right before the economy collapsed and all the job growth in tech ceased completely. He now works IT at a local bank, making $18 an hour. The good news is he likes the quiet country life. He likes the easy, cushy job that lets him dabble and goof off 90% of the time. And he loves his wife more than anything. The dude should be a multi-billionaire tech guru, but found a new calling for simple life. Story 27. I went to middle school with an incredibly intelligent boy, super smart and very attractive, was the adopted son of the wealthiest family in town. Died from a brain tumor when we were 13. That was about 40 years ago, and I still wonder how his life would have turned out. No, that's not possible. You can't be super smart and very attractive. Quantum mechanics forbids this. Okay, I might be a little jealous. Story 28. Both killed themselves. One is because he was only measured by his achievements, not his personality, even at his funeral. The other one must have had mental issues no one was aware of. Story 29. Couple. One got rejected from MIT, supposedly because they had too many Asians, ended up going to Caltech and now works at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. There's actually an interview of him going around talking about one of the Mars rovers. He's still comically awkward. Another went to Harvard on a full academic scholarship and was a VP of a Fortune 500 before the age of 30. So he ended up getting a better education and nicer weather. That turned out well. Story 30. My classmates all thought that was me. So, no, we did not have a genius in our class.